From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Morning Line with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line. Nick Barris coming to you on a Monday. I hope you had a good weekend. This is a live show coming to you from the Plus Studios downtown. Invite you, as always, to join in the conversation. We'll get the phone line up there in just a moment, and you're welcome to join us. We're going to have a guest for the first two segments of the show, and then near the end of the show, the last segment or two, we're going to just go open phones with a lot of the things that have happened in news over the last 2 or 3 days, or last week, as a matter of fact, since we last did an open phones. So if you have something on your mind not associated with our first guest, that's fine. But you may have some thoughts, if nothing else, to sit back and listen to about what's going on in the city of Nashville. As we deal with this pandemic, it doesn't mean that activities and bookings and things like that are stopping for the future, even though obviously the city has slowed down an awful lot over the past several months. But there's some big things in the works, and where we go and how we handle what's happened, the person we're going to talk to is someone who's behind a lot of these new developments, and that is Butch Spyridon with the Visitor and Convention Bureau. It's nice to have you on, Butch. Good morning to you.
Morning, Nick. Thanks for having me. It's good to do something semi-live and semi-normal.
Well, semi-normal, about as close as it comes, and I really appreciate you joining us this morning. All right, look, a lot going on, and we've all done stories over the past couple of weeks in the media about how much money's been lost to what's happened with the pandemic, and I know it's probably enough to make your hair, you know, just fall out because you're like freaking out about this and knowing we had so many things booking. But that doesn't mean that what you're doing has come to a standstill, right? I mean, you're constantly looking ahead toward when we're able to reopen more and planning more events, right?
Absolutely. Probably what keeps me semi-sane. I'll never be all the way sane, but you know, you got to worry about what's going on today, but you also have to look forward and be prepared for recovery and hopefully be ahead of our competition.
Well, all right, let's just hit on this one, and there's a lot of ground to cover here. We can look at what's been lost and where we go moving forward, but the thing that caught my attention, I was telling Butch before the show started that I recently just watched Ford versus Ferrari, a movie that came out last year. I saw it on Amazon Prime, I think, this past weekend. It was awesome, and it was neat watching this race in Le Mans. We all know NASCAR tracks, right, Butch, and we know the Indy 500, a set track. What's so great about a Grand Prix is that it actually runs along the streets of wherever it's happening. It's on the real streets that cars share, even though they're cleared for the race. And now there's talk of Nashville getting an Indy-type Grand Prix race. And it looks, the more I've heard, unless there's a new development, that it's looking fairly promising for next year. Can you tell us where we stand on that? And then give me a little background on whether you sought this out or if that's one of those where you got a call and said, hey, we're looking at Nashville for this neat race.
A little combination. So this is probably my fourth iteration of talking to different individuals that wanted to bring a similar race to town. It's certainly the most serious. This is the one that has gotten the furthest. The local guys behind this have really done a good job. And then when maybe it was a month ago, they said, we're going to meet with Roger Penske in Indy, and do you want to come? Well, there are a couple things. One, I don't care how serious, meeting Roger Penske and learning a little bit there was worth the trip. He's as impressive as you might think, but that was an encouraging meeting. And then last week, he and the IndyCar team came to town to look at the course, which says they like Nashville, they like what they've seen, they want to dot the I's and cross the T's. So I think it's pretty close to getting done. And, you know, it's certainly not a done deal yet, but the local group, they approached me to answer your original question. We've been working with them for several years, probably almost 4 years now. And that's the kind of time and effort things like this take, because you don't want it to be a one-off. You want it to be as long as the Long Beach race or St. Pete. There's some great races out there, and we want to become one of them.
Okay, yeah, and maybe I was going to ask you to talk about some of the other communities that have this, as you said, Long Beach and St. Pete. So the way it works, and so many folks here in the South are very familiar, obviously, with the NASCAR format and all of this, but Let folks know how this would work and what kind of course it would be, and when would it happen, and does that mean that the other cars obviously are closed off from the course the day of the race, right?
Yeah, the proposed course is mostly around Nissan Stadium. It does go over the KVB bridge and makes a 180 hairpin turn back over the bridge, which is a really cool look, and just when you see a car make that kind of turn, it's worth the price of admission. So it will take to the streets of Nashville. It won't shut down the entire city. We're being very careful and deliberate that the impact on locals is minimal, and obviously during race day that will occur. But the comparison of Ford versus Ferrari, I think, does a good job. And let's don't leave out that probably IndyCar's top driver is a Nashville kid, Joseph Newgarden. He's the reigning series champ from last year, and one of the top drivers, and ironically, he drives for Penske. So Penske owns the Indianapolis 500, owns the IndyCar race series, and owns a couple of teams that race in his series. So he has his name on it, and looking carefully at Nashville.
I just think it's so cool. I mean, we know it's big time for motorsports in Nashville with the Speedway maybe coming back, as you've likely heard about that. But just so I'm clear then, again, I just love this concept. These will be Indy cars that could be going up to close to 200 miles an hour on our city streets, right? And I mean, they're going to be going that fast, and it's something where spectators will be able to watch from their homes, the high rises. There may be bleachers set up. I'm just curious how you envision this working out.
You know, a little bit of everything. The Titans have been a great partner, so props to them for being creative and, you know, using the facility outside of the stadium. There will be grandstands. There will be east side club viewing, and there will be places to view all around downtown. Certainly hopefully the new Four Seasons, if the race lasts more than 1 year, that'd be a great vantage point. The new building right there at KVB and Hermitage or First Avenue. So vantage points all over the place. Will be, as Nashville should, more like a festival, a lot of music, a lot of food, a lot of fun. So the race hopefully will be almost secondary to the city. You know, you need a little bit of both, and I think IndyCar, and I get asked the question a lot, and they did, but they have paid attention to Pred Watch Party, CMA Music Fest, July 4th, NHL All-Star Game, and the NFL Draft, and just looked, and they know that as a city, we know how to do major world-class events, and that intrigues them that we can bring some other elements to the table.
We're showing some video right now about what some of these Grand Prix races might look like. By the way, are we thinking then time of day? It would be a weekend race probably, and is it an all-day thing? And what month do we think?
We've recommended August because that's a need period for us, and it can shoe in before preseason games at the stadium. I'm sorry, you had another question that I...
Well, just, I guess, the main thing would be, you know, is it going to be in you know, what time of year it's going to be, and whether or not it's an all-day long race. Is it something that, you know, I mean, because like Le Mans, of course, is all day, 24 hours, but this would be what, how many miles?
It's probably a 2 or 3 hour race. Okay. I'm guessing there'll be a secondary race, maybe on Friday evening, so they'll break it up. But likely 2 races, with the primary race being on Sunday afternoon. And then, as I said, music, walking the paddock, looking at the cars, meeting the drivers, you know, an immersive event and an immersive experience with it.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I don't know how other people, I'm going to take a call here and people are willing to sound off. I'm not a huge auto racing fan per se necessarily. I don't know cars that well. I like sports in general. But this just intrigues me so much, maybe because for some reason, not that this is necessarily good or bad, it has a European feel to me. I mean, this is the kind of races you hear about in Europe, and it's coming here and it's through a community and it's on the set streets as opposed to a racetrack, though it's safe. It just really personally intrigues me. I don't know if others will find that. Do you get a sense that some people, when you suggest it, say, what are you talking about, Butch? No, I want NASCAR, or are some people intrigued by it? Because I mean, like I said, I couldn't name a race car driver. But I really want to see that. Hey, hang on, let's take this caller. He may be on my line. Are you there, David? What's your question, David?
Yes, good morning. A question with regards to what would need to be done with upgrading the streets to accommodate the type of vehicles that would be racing on it.
Yeah, fair question. Again, these are Indy cars, and then just talk about, are people willing and excited about that from what you've heard, and what would need to be upgraded?
So let me start by answering a question that wasn't asked. Any improvements or needs that need to be done to the roads would be paid for by the IndyCar team.
Okay.
They were so impressed with the roads, in particular the KVB bridge, that there's very little that would need to be done. Obviously, making sure it's completely smooth, fixing potholes, anything like that, but very minimal adjustments to the roads themselves. Inside the parking lots at Nissan Stadium, there would be some work done there, and again, that would be covered by the race promoters that will own this particular race here in Nashville.
And I imagine this race, will it be promoted and televised nationally by some network, or is that something that would be picked up?
It would be televised nationally. That's part of the agreement, part of the Indy Racing Series. Right now, we're told that it would be on network television. I won't name the network. I'm pretty sure it's not yours.
Okay.
It does, you mentioned it, it has a huge international following, which is good for Nashville and certainly my business, good for the British Air flight, should we be fortunate enough to get it back. You know, we need to show British Air that we're continuing to work on things that ensure the success of that flight. But the international visitor will come over here and stay longer and spend more and probably visit more of the state. So we think it's a good thing all the way around, a need period, good time of year. And as I said, everybody, the mayor's office, the governor's office, the Titans, everybody has worked really hard on this for a number of years.
You know, okay, we're going to go to a break, but just knowing you, Butch, over the years, I have a lot of respect for you. I know in your mind there's a list and there's a checklist down there, and this has got to hit most of it, and near the top of it has to be this. As opposed to a NASCAR race or an Indy 500 that's on a set track, this is going to be television live coverage nationally of cars driving through the city of Nashville, basically profiling and highlighting how this city looks. You can't miss it. That's what they're driving through. It's like just an advertisement for check out Nashville. The city becomes one of the stars of the broadcast, absolutely. I just think it's brilliant. All right, well, listen, we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk to Butch about some other elements going on as well, his thoughts on where things are going with regard to the pandemic and the hopes as things change down the road. So we'll take a break and be back with more, and we can take a few calls if you want right after this.